Guess who's back? Back again. Guess who's back? Guess who's back? Guess who's back? Yeah, I know. I said I was going to only do one video, and then one video became two videos, and now I guess it's a trilogy. And, with everything that's going on in the news lately, who knows? It's been nice to get everything off my chest and to voice my opinion and just to get it out there. So you never know. Maybe I'll make a few more of these as time comes. We'll see what happens. I mean, this has been a crazy year. I'm telling you, 2016, I swear to God, 2016 is cursed. And I say that in all seriousness. I mean, look what 2016 has done. It took Alan Rickman from us. It took Prince from us. It took David Bowie from us. I mean, it took so many celebrities from us. And it was racked with people who've had mysterious illnesses that doctors couldn't figure out. And I myself ended up having emergency surgery. And I mean, like I said, this has been the craziest year. And then this election, oh my God. This, I swear to God, 2016 is a cursed year. And I'm telling you right now, it is absolutely no coincidence that next year, for those who are Catholic, you guys should know this. Next year, 2017, I believe in May, is the 100-year anniversary of Fatima. I mean, that opens up a whole other can of worms. And you know what? I'm going to do a whole show about that because it is really interesting, this whole Fatima thing. 100 years ago, 3 children had Mary, the Blessed Mother of Christ, appear to them and give them a few secrets. And 2 of the secrets have been revealed. And like I said, then it gets into the Second Vatican Council took over. And things started to go nuts on its own, there's a conspiracy that the Sister Lucia, many of us grew up knowing, is actually a hired actress, or was, she's passed away now, but was a hired actress. And they actually show really convincing evidence on from the traditionalist Catholics. They show, they just show that it's impossible for that Lucia to have been the actual Lucia based just on the face alone. But like I said, and then they talk about the third secret and how the third secret was never really revealed. It was kind of faked. It was this whole mass jumble bumble stuff that was made up by Vatican II that was thrown out there to appease the people, but that really wasn't the real secret. And the real secret has to do with apostasy. And I mean, it's crazy. But that's 2016. The 2016 is crazy. I mean, this is the craziest year I have ever seen in my life. From all of the people that we've lost, big name celebrities and young. I mean, like Alan Rickman and David Bowie, they were only I think 65 or 66, somewhere in their mid to late 60s, which is not really old. I mean, considering we have people that are living way into their 90s now. Some of them are living way into their hundreds. We used to talk about the oldest living person. Well, now it's like everybody's the oldest living person, because if you look in the newspaper, you always see so-and-so celebrating 112, so-and-so celebrating 102, so-and-so celebrating 103. So, I mean, it is kind of shocking when you see somebody that young respectively, passing away. And so 2016 with weird illnesses and just craziness. I mean, little craziness. And it leads into the 100th anniversary of the Fatima apparitions and the Fatima secrets. And like I said, I'm going to do a whole nother show about that because that in itself is really crazy. But anyway, I don't think it's a coincidence. I really don't. So, but I want to talk a little bit more about the craziness that's been going on in the news. So I thought I would do another one of these YouTube radio show thingies. First, I'm going to start by showing you a few pictures of the Electoral College. So if you're watching this rather than just idly listening, watch on full screen because then you can see these pictures really well. But if you go on my video list, you will see that I have videos dedicated to explaining what the Electoral College is, how it works, why we need it, why you can't get delegates to change their vote after it's already been cast. It's actually pretty good and informative for my very first show, if I do say so myself, and I do. And then it also talks about the hilariousness of this alleged popular vote lead that Hillary Clinton has. We're going to talk a little bit about that too this episode because it comes up in the news again. But definitely go back and watch that first video. And again, full screen is the best way to do it so you can watch all the memes and the helpful images and everything like that. So now hopefully we're done with the pictures of the Electoral College. Next, I'm going to be showing you a series of photos of the people who want to run our country. This is also discussed in the second episode briefly. So you can go back and watch the second episode that I did. But this is about the people on the left, the type of people that they are, and why you should be scared about allowing them to get their hands on the country and have their way with it. These people are crying to have recounts and do-overs and are protesting in the streets to try to get their way. They want everyone to cave and cater to their whims. They want to be in charge. I mean, take a good hard look. These are the people who called Trump supporters the undereducated. These are the ones who think that they should be calling the shots for the country. These are the ones who feel that because there's more of them per capita, they should have a say about what happens to every person in every state in this country. These are the reasons we have the Electoral College, because of these highly educated, classy pillars of society, like Mega Godzilla Hooker. In her 450-pound state, green sequence bra and micro miniskirt stretched beyond its limits, simulating sexual acts with a cardboard cutout of Trump Towers, rubbing a photo of Trump between her legs, and then ripping off her top, exposing her breasts in front of children. This is who you want to have a bigger say in who runs our country? Really? The Trump supporters are the uneducated or the undereducated, but this is the pillar of sanity on the left. And this classy gentleman right here, he actually worked, and I say worked, for the New York State Office for People with Developmental Disabilities. And this was his highly educated and rational reaction to Trump winning. Now, the rant is too long, so the photo kind of becomes distorted and it's really hard to read on a YouTube video. So let me read it for you. The man's name is Charles Walls. And again, he is the former representative of the New York State Office for People with Developmental Disabilities. At least I hope he's a former representative. At the time, they said that they were investigating it and they haven't spoken about it since. But you would hope, after what I'm about to read to you, that he is a former representative. Because do you really want him working with your child if your child has a developmental disability? Here is his statement. Again, Charles Walls, W-A-L-Z. To my friends that live in red voting states, you have 2 months to move. After that, if you don't, do not consider us friends. I want you dead. I want your families dead. I want your wives, husbands, children, and grandchildren dead. Not just dead, but horrible, painful deaths. Torturous cancers, bone, brain, burning alive in a fire, drownings. Wives and daughters, or should I say your cunts as you Republicans like to call them, should be brutally raped first. All before you have your own agonizing death. If you live in a blue state, but I know you are supporting Lucifer, and on a side note, this is me interjecting. It's funny that this guy, who's calling for the rape of women and children and the brutal murders of everyone else, is calling Trump Lucifer. Okay, but back to what he said. He continues, I want the same for you, but you don't have a grace period. To the rest of the people in red states, I hope the land runs red with your family's blood. I will cheer at every natural disaster that takes you out. The higher the death toll, the better. Every infant or toddler floating around face down after a flood is a victory for me. Every twisted body found in the rubble of your home after a tornado is like a cherry on an ice cream sundae. Every school shooting is a joyous news for me. I will no longer support America. I will no longer buy America. Canadian, Mexican, and China-made products are better anyway. I do not support our troops. Every dead serviceman is a victory for me. You spoke, America. Now choke on your own putrid vomit. Don't speak to me again unless it's through the joy from my through my joy from your bloodshed. Again, that was a highly educated and very rational, sane Clinton supporter who definitely should be trusted to make decisions that affect every American, as the left want to be able to do. Charles Walls, again, is his name, and his hopefully former place of business has only really stated now that they are investigating, and while they support freedom of speech, they do not tolerate threats taken against people's safety. However, they would not speak to if he has been eliminated or not, because it is an ongoing investigation. So there you go. And just as a side, by the by, I believe his Facebook page was removed. I don't know if he removed it or if it has been removed. And rumor is he was arrested, not necessarily for this particular incident. I think it actually had more to do with the fact that I guess police came to question him after they had received reports about the threats that were posted online. And I think the rumor is, again, this is not substantiated. I haven't really looked into it. But I guess he made a big fuss with the police officers and they didn't really have a choice but to take him in or something along those lines. Again, I don't know how true that is, but I do know that his place of business said they are investigating and he is not currently there. I don't know if that means he was terminated or if he's on leave or, what that means. But they said they take the matter seriously and he's being investigated. And the rumor mill is that he had been arrested. Probably at this point he's been released, but he had been arrested according to the rumor mill. I'll have to take a closer look into that for you and see if I could find out the truth behind that. But yes, he has at the very least been put on leave, if not terminated from his position with the Developmental Disabilities of New York City. And yeah, that's the left, y'all. Moving right along, let's talk about another genius. This was the one that the left wanted to make Vice President of the United States. We have learned from the left that it's always a great idea to jump on something and make assumptions and speak before we think and speak before we have all the facts and then continue to talk even after we've been proven wrong. Tim Kaine. Yeah, that guy. The guy during the vice presidential debate actually made himself look worse than Trump and kind of got people a little scared that he was that close to the presidency, considering Hillary's questionable health, and all the stuff that was going on with her. And everyone's looking at him like, oh my God, he could be president. Now, yeah, that is just a teensy bit scary. Yeah, Tim Kaine. Well, recently, a radicalized Somali immigrant who actually came here in 2014 as a refugee, he recently mowed down a bunch of innocent people in his car, then got out and began stabbing people before he was finally taken down by police. Tim Kaine came out and spoke against gun violence in light of this new terroristic attack. Gun violence. Gun violence. Basically, a terrorist who had been posting anti-American radicalized statements on social media used a car and a knife to try to kill people, but Tim Kaine immediately jumps on gun violence. Not the fact that he was radicalized, not the fact that he sympathized with terrorists, not the fact that he posted sympathetic to terrorist statements on social media, not the fact that he drove a car into a bunch of people, not the fact that he was using a knife and that it was actually a gun that stopped his rampage. But let's talk about gun violence. Brilliant. Speaking of, let's also touch on another group from the left. This would be called the alt-left, kind of like they believe Milo Yiannopoulos of Breitbart is the alt-right, the really far wacko right-wingers. Well, this would be the alt-left. We'll briefly touch on another group who wants to change the look of our country. Black Lives Matter. The non-terroristic, peace-loving, all we want is justice and fairness for all Black Lives Matter. The group who shouted, "What do we want? Dead cops. When do we want them now?" The organizers of Pigs in a Blanket, Fry Them Like Bacon. The ones Hillary had counseling her campaign, yet completely ignored the police officers union. Well, they recently came out and said that we shouldn't make a hero of the officer who stopped the terrorist on a killing spree because he's a white cop who killed a black man. That was the reasoning behind not wanting to praise a man who stopped a terrorist from actually killing people, which was his intent when he went up on a sidewalk and plowed a bunch of people down and then began stabbing them with a knife. But the cop was white. So you got a white person who happens to be a cop, and that equals bad in their eyes. The terrorist is more sympathetic to them because he was black. Yet I'm sure if Black Lives Matter, where they're doing a protest, and this guy who doesn't care about black or white, it's all about the radicalized views he has, you know, and if he started mowing them down, I bet the cops would have been the first people they'd call. But no, we can't be praising the white cop who killed a black man. That is how they view this. They don't view it as a police officer who took out a terrorist who was trying to murder innocent people, all in the name of his radical views. They simply look at it as a white cop, black man situation. These are the people who want to run our country. These are the people who want to shape the country into something that they can be proud of. Think about that. Especially because, you know, there really isn't that much hope for the millennials. I mean, you know, they're still wearing their diaper pins. And I suppose when you're as big of a crybaby as they are, they probably need frequent diaper changes. And so it's kind of helpful to have those diaper pins so that they know where to go when they need to be changed. But I don't think there's very much hope for them. However, there is hope for the generation following the millennials. Those kids who are 12 years and under, who still can be molded into rational, sane adults. You know, and we can protect them from the indoctrination of these colleges. So, you know, this is, I really want you to take a good hard look at those people and really keep that in mind. So now keep that all in mind, like I said, as we move on to our next topic. Jill, I'm a loser who couldn't even get a full percentage of the popular vote, Stein. Green Party candidate who did abysmally in the race for the White House. She actually came behind What's Aleppo, sticks his tongue out randomly at a journalist, and fakes a heart attack on camera as a joke about pot being bad for the heart, Gary Johnson. She actually lost to that beacon of maturity. Again, the guy who wants to be the president of the United States, what's Aleppo? The guy who just for no reason, as a reporter is asking him a question, starts sticking his tongue out at her like, nah, nah, like literally like that. Like, I mean, he was doing that to this reporter asking him a question. And then when they were on television and they were talking about the effects of marijuana and the potential effects that it could have on somebody's heart, he decides to fake a heart attack, like actually clutching his chest, starting to go into what looks like a seizure, falling off the chair and then rolling around on the floor. That beacon of maturity got more votes than Jill Stein. But she's raising money to force various states into doing a recount because, according to her, scientists said the system is hackable. Yes, scientists said the voting system could be hacked. So she's petitioning Michigan tomorrow to do a recount, even though it's a paper ballot state. I guess the Russians can hack paper now. She also petitioned Pennsylvania, but they, I believe, denied her, saying that she had missed the deadline to demand a recall. And basically, a recall wouldn't change anything in their opinion anyway. It would just prove that Trump actually won the popular vote of the state, provided we don't have a replay of Gore Bush, or I don't know if it was Gore Bush or Gore Kerry, where they were doing a recount And Bush was mysteriously scratched out, and I think either Gore or Kerry were filled in, and oh, look, we found another vote. It looks like they meant to vote for, Gore or Kerry, but they accidentally filled it in for Bush. Let's correct that for them, and here's another vote for our side. There you go. So provided we don't have any of that going on, they said basically Trump won the state legitimately, and a recount's not going to do much anyway. Wisconsin has agreed to do a recount, which is going to start Thursday. And as of right now, while I'm doing this show, it's Tuesday, the 29th of November, 2016. However, she's going to have to fork over $3 million. Actually, over $3 million. I think it was like $3.5 million for the recount. Because they said, no, if we're going to have to do this just to prove that Trump won because you don't have any evidence that there was any issues to begin with, you're going to be paying some big money for it. And they will not do it by hand as she requested. Again, Wisconsin stated their system is not connected to the internet, and thus they don't understand how a hacking could even be an issue anyway. But they will do a recount via electronic methods, and more than likely it will still state that Trump is the clear winner, and it's going to cost her $3.5 million. Michigan just called the election last night. It took them 20 days. It took 20 days for them to call it, but they finally called it for Trump. First time in nearly 30 years that a Republican won that state. And she's petitioning them tomorrow. And as I said, because again, paper ballots obviously can be hacked, according to Jill Stein. And Michigan will probably do it. And being the state that hasn't gone red in nearly 30 years, I guarantee they'll be the state to find a lot of, oops, it looks like they meant to vote for Hillary. I think they filled Trump in by accident. Click. Okay, this is for Hillary now. Should they even agree to the recount? I mean, it's not actually determined if they're going to agree because it took them 20 days to finally call the election and now they want to do a recount? So I don't know. That's kind of up in the air. We'll find out tomorrow if they actually go through with it. But Pennsylvania turned out to be a no-go. Wisconsin is a go, but it's costing her a lot more money than she expected, and she's not happy about that. And Michigan is still, we don't know. We won't find out until tomorrow. But I'll tell you, she isn't happy whatsoever with the price of Wisconsin's recount. And do you know why? Because she's scamming you. Wisconsin knew that, which is why they charged her so much. Her plan basically was to take your money, put it forward to a half-hearted recount effort, and then pocket the rest of the money. It is clear that the money she was trying to raise on behalf of the recounts were donations, which means there are no backsies. No returns no matter what happens. If all the states said, no, we're not going to do a recount, well, that's too bad, so sad. There's a disclaimer that said, the money is a donation. We cannot guarantee that the recounts will happen, and we cannot guarantee the result of the recount. So obviously, you're not going to get your money back if it doesn't go your way, because it is a donation which is given of your own free will. Now, she has that disclaimer. But the one thing that's missing is a disclaimer about what she would do with the unused funds. That was the whole point. She raised more money for this recount than she did her whole campaign. She's just lining her pockets. That's why she was upset with the cost of the Wisconsin recount, because it is taking a big hit of the money she raised. Now, why would I make such an accusation against Jill Stein? Because she and her team admitted they're moving forward with this recount effort without any proof that it has any merit. And I quote, "We do not have any evidence of fraud. We do not have any smoking guns. What we have is an election that was surrounded by hacking." If you have no proof, no smoking gun, no evidence, and you're requesting recounts in states with paper ballots or who are not hooked up to the internet and thus cannot be hacked, how can you say that you have an election surrounded by hacking? This is the mentality of the left, y'all. This is the mentality of the people who want to run the country. And y'all wonder why we keep getting attacked on our soil? San Bernardino, Orlando, Minnesota, New York, New Jersey, Ohio. You wonder why Russia is on their last nerve with us? Iran is taking advantage of us. We're not respected as a country. You wonder why race relations are at an all-time low? And why trust and fear are at an all-time high? We're fighting ISIS. We're fighting terrorism on our own soil. And we're fighting each other in what is the start of what is definitely going to be a civil war, red versus blue. We're dooming our society, but that is the mentality of the left. Screw Americans. Screw what's best for the country as a whole, for society as a whole. It's about what can you do for me now? And let's ask it, what have they done for you now? Obamacare has been an abysmal failure. Even for people who were poor and thought that they were going to be getting a great deal, like, oh, finally I'm going to get accepted. And it turned out to not be such a great deal. Especially as millions and millions of Americans are facing premium increases. I mean, some are getting increased by close to 30%. That went fantastic. And then you want to talk about the uneducated and the undereducated that are voting for Trump? Again, I asked this in the last video, and I will ask it again. Where is the highest rate of dropouts of people, like people who have not even finished high school? Some who have not even finished the 8th grade. They haven't even finished middle school, let alone high school. Where is the highest rate of the worst schools, the worst teachers, the most underplaying schools in our system? The inner cities that are run by Democrats and have been run by Democrats for decades. They keep promising school reform, better schools, better education, more jobs. Where? Where has it been? Your cities have been run by Democrats for decades. Flint, Michigan, Detroit, Michigan, Chicago, Illinois, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. These places have the highest crime rates, the highest poverty rates, the highest rates of welfare recipients compared to those in the job market, the highest school dropout rates, the lowest rates for people who actually go on to college. I mean, what in decades have they accomplished in your cities? Chicago is actually more impoverished than it was in a long time and has seen the deadliest year that it has seen in over 2 decades. The deadliest. This is the most crime that Chicago has ever had, and Chicago hasn't exactly been a safe haven. What have they done for you that keeps you coming back time and again? And I sometimes say that about the Republicans because the whole point of us voting the Republicans into office was because they promised to take care of Obamacare. But then they said they needed more Republicans in office, so we put more Republicans in office and they still did nothing. But the Democrats are worse. Because at least with the Republicans, they have been trying to secure our borders. They have been trying to keep people from coming into our country from radicalized areas without knowing what their intentions are. They've actually been trying. They support our troops. They support funding our troops. They support the men and women who dress up every day, put on a uniform, and walk the streets and put their lives on the line to protect our cities. Yet not every one of them are going to be great. But not every teacher's a good person. Not every lawyer's a good person. Not every person is a good person. You're going to find a bad apple and a bunch of really good apples. You know, so as a whole, the police need our support because they are the ones putting their lives on the line to protect us. And at least our side understands that. We may not be perfect, but we understand that it's important to protect our people. It's important to try to help our veterans. It's important to protect the men and women who are making us safe and protecting our freedoms in other countries who want to hurt us. The left doesn't seem to understand that. Again, I want to point out a few things. Like I said, as a whole, it's all about what you can do for a Democrat, what you can do for the left, even though they haven't done anything for you at all. They still demand your loyalty. They still want to keep you under their thumb. I mean, literally think about it. They keep you on welfare. They keep you out of good schools. They keep you out of good jobs. And why? Because they need you to be dependent on them. And the more you are dependent on them, the more that you are a victim who cannot take care of yourself without the government wiping your ass, the more power they have thanks to you. I mean, everyone always talks about slavery from all those, centuries ago. Slavery, slavery, slavery. When a lot of people here, I actually talked to an African American who went and did his genealogy and found out after years of demanding reparations, his family actually came to America after slavery was abolished. He was not related to a slave. But you want to talk about slavery? That's what the Democrats are doing to you. They are keeping you from being educated. They are keeping you from good jobs. They are keeping you in cities where you can't even walk up the street without being afraid for your life. They're keeping you on welfare and 100% dependent on them, even though they have never done anything. The only thing that they've given you is birth control and abortions. Basically, you think, oh, that's great. I can go be as promiscuous as I want now because I have a remedy. No, you know what you have? You have the government controlling your population. That's what you have. You think that they care about your choice? No, they are controlling your population because they know that you'll take advantage of it. They've brainwashed you into thinking that birth control is the only issue you should care about. Forget about the facts that you're living in poverty. Forget about the fact that you're living in crime-ridden streets. Forget about the fact that there are no good jobs because you aren't getting a full education, a good education. Forget about all the fact that the Democrats have been running your cities for decades. Forget about all of that. They need your vote. So basically, you are a slave to the Democrat Party. But anyway, they want to bring refugees into this country unvetted, and are all about keeping an open border so that anyone can come in at any time. Okay, again, I want to point at the Orlando attacker. Somali refugee. He's a Somalian refugee that was granted permanent status, but he came here as a refugee. He's been throwing radicalized ideals online long before the attack. And as I pointed out also in a previous video, there was just a case of a woman who was here illegally. She had threatened a woman and held that woman's daughters hostage at knife point, and she was sent to jail. They released her before anyone had a chance to request a stay pending deportation. So then what happens? She murders a mother and kidnaps her newborn baby to pass it off as her own. She wasn't even supposed to be in this country, and now a mother is dead and a newborn child has no mother. But the left is all for open borders and unvetted refugees. And you're racist if you say, hey, wait. Now we're going to move on and talk a little bit about something that was in the news again. The mainstream media. They're once again shocked and aghast by something Trump tweeted. He tweeted that if it weren't for illegal votes, he'd probably have won the popular vote of the country as well. And they're beside themselves. How dare he? There's no evidence of that. Well, there's no evidence of the need for a recount, but they're still covering it. That Jill Stein's actually received more coverage than she's received the whole entire election from the mainstream media. Shepard Smith of Fox News states that the only source who supports Trump's sentiments is a false news conspiracy site called InfoWars. You know, the false news agency who, unlike Mr. Smith, was right about everything in every phase of the election. You know, those false conspiracy sites that got everything right. Again, in my first video, I talk about all the reasons that Trump really isn't that far off when he says that. When he tweets that he could have won the popular vote if it wasn't for some illegal votes, he's really not that wrong. And I'm not going to go into it all, but I'll just, rehash a few things. For example, one governor was caught, not that he was the only governor who did it, just that he was the only one who was caught, pardoning 60,000 felons in time for them to vote for Hillary. He basically bought votes for her. Of course, he didn't buy them with money, but he bought them with a clean slate, and he bought votes for Hillary. And you can't do that. You can't buy a vote. That's an illegitimate vote. WikiLeaks and Project Veritas proved through emails and on hidden camera that there was a wide concerted effort to commit voter registration fraud, registering names of the deceased, having people register in multiple districts, illegals registering to vote in states where voter IDs or proof of citizenship is not required. And this wasn't some kind of grand conspiracy, because one person in Clinton's camp was fired and one resigned after this became public. And you don't commit widespread voter registration fraud if you don't plan on following through with voter fraud. It was caught in an undercover camera investigation that some of volunteers for the Democratic Party were ripping up Trump supporter registrations. There was somebody that was posing as a volunteer who had a hidden camera, and he, basically said, I guess I just get so pissed off when I see these people who want to vote for Trump, and I just want to be upfront with you, and I can understand if, you want to get rid of me, but, I ripped up their registrations and I threw them away. Am I going to get in trouble for that? And they're saying, oh, no, I understand where you're coming from. And we've done that ourselves. Don't make a habit of it because you don't want to get caught. But, he's basically saying, no, it's okay to rip up the registration of those who want to vote for Trump is basically what happened. He was caught on camera doing it, caught on camera telling this guy that it was okay, and that it's been done before. Just don't make a habit of it because you don't want to do too much and get caught. So, yeah. It was caught on camera that someone who's supposed to be impartial was illegally campaigning for Hillary while registering voters. You cannot do that. It is not legal. You cannot campaign for any candidate while you are registering voters. It's the same thing that if you're going to be working the polls, on whether it is during the primaries or whether it's during election, you can't wear a shirt that is supportive of a particular candidate. And so this woman was caught on camera trying to actually campaign for Hillary Clinton while registering voters. We also know that voterfraud.org stated they found evidence that there may be over 3 million fraudulent votes cast in states that did not require a voter ID, and they are currently speaking to lawyers about further investigations and the legalities of. And that's not taking into consideration all of the shady stuff coming from Hillary's camp with the pay to play and such. Like I said, we're not going to really go into it because watch that first video. I go into more detail. But if they want to go there, we will make another episode and we will go there. Okay? But also in the news, a sailor who was working on a submarine in 2009 was recently sentenced to 1 year in prison because he took pictures for his personal use while on the submarine, which he didn't realize would be an issue. He just was really excited. He was working on a submarine. And so he started taking pictures. And one of the pictures he took, he didn't realize it was a secured area. And you couldn't take pictures because there might have been something classified there. So now he recently was admitted into prison. He's a new father, so he's being taken away from his wife, his new baby, his parents, his family, his friends, for less than what Hillary Clinton did. And he didn't do it maliciously, like Hillary, I'm Secretary of State, but I don't know what the C meant, Clinton. Obama has pardoned more criminals than the past 11 presidents combined. But he hasn't found it within himself to pardon this young man who made a mistake in 2009. Hopefully Trump can rectify that in January, but it's just a shame that he has to sit in prison until then. But the good thing is he said that he's been treated well so far, and he is currently working with training service animals for veterans who need service animals. So, I mean, at least, that's one good thing that'll come out of it is hopefully we'll have some really good service animals for our veterans who are really in need of emotional support dogs or medical service animals as well. But still, it's a shame that he has to sit in prison while Hillary walks free. Speaking of Hillary, she's really putting her nose into Trump's face lately, isn't she? Her camp is actually supporting Jill Stein's efforts, even though she conceded, and conceding is basically the same as the electoral vote. Once it's given, you can't take it back. And here, Trump has basically gone soft on her and said, we just want to unite the country and not tear it apart with this dragged out investigation into Hillary's emails. We need to start healing the nation and come together. And this is how she thanks him for letting her off the hook. Mr. Trump, I know you're probably not listening, but if you are, you can still rethink your softness on Hillary. As it is, many of us who voted for you did so because of your statements that you would be investigating her. Those in power should not be above the law. While an innocent man who really didn't even realize he was doing anything wrong spends a year away from his family for less than what she did. Anyway, so that's really all I can think about really discussing for this particular episode. So until next time, chickadees, Seacrest out.